Hey everybody, welcome into this week's episode of Tony's Spot on Fishing. I'm your host, Tony Krizek. Today we're going to be talking about all the cold weather baits early in the spring, well pre-spawn. What can you do to go out and start catching bass right now? And these techniques will work on ponds, they'll work on big lakes, wherever you're fishing. These are the baits you got to be throwing. That's this week on Tony's Spot on Fishing. There we go. Oh, come here. Come here. There we go. That's one nice way to start us off. Not a big fish, but he's a fish nonetheless. Well, I'll tell you, we've had such a cold winter, never-ending winter. Really, it's more like it. So much snow has gone around Chicagoland for well too far into April for just about anybody's liking, that's for sure. And finally, we're getting some stable weather, actually some spring-like temps. And, you know, just because it's starting to warm up, the water doesn't just skyrocket overnight either. It's still getting cold at night, but at least we're warming up during the day. And one of my favorite things to do when we're in this transition period where things are starting to warm up, fish are starting to move just based on the calendar part of the year, I love throwing jerkbaits. Now, I've thrown Lucky Crafts and you name it, evergreen jerkbaits, pretty much every jerkbait Rapala's ever done. And really, everyone's got their own favorites. But the biggest thing is no matter what your jerkbait of choice, you want either a slow rise or a suspending, because all the action is imparted by the rod. It's just twitching. The reel's just there to pick up the slack line. So I like running a higher speed reel for this just to pick up the slack line quickly. And then all the action is imparted by the rod tip. Now, either run a medium action, a standard graphite rod, a medium action's fine. Or if you're doing a carbon fiber rod like what I have here, you can actually go to medium heavy because it's a little bit softer. I definitely love fishing mono for this application. And I actually run a little bit stiffer of a mono. I like that P-Line CXX. It's their extra strong, their extra abrasion resistance. And having that little bit of extra stiffness to it really helps impart those darts and dashes a lot better. But as we're starting out the year here, let the fish tell you exactly how they want it. If they want it faster retrieve, if slower retrieve, longer pauses, they'll tell you. And you just have to figure out that pattern. And it can change daily, it can change hourly for that matter. And like I say, this is probably my #1 go-to style of bait. It doesn't matter, we're just on an old farm pond here, but it doesn't matter if you're on a big body of water, even river systems for that matter. Guys that are out fishing the displays quite a bit, doing things like that. These are all the presentations we're using this time of year. Now my favorite jerkbait to throw is still that Rapala, the BX Minnow. It's a balsa encased jerkbait. So it has a little more roll, a little more flash. They're getting harder and harder to find. But you could still find them through our Amazon account, through Spot on Fishing. And a couple other online retailers still have some as well. But man, I'll tell you, just great flash, super easy to work. And they flat out work phenomenally. By far one of my favorite jerkbaits of all time. Come on. That's a little better one. That's a little better. We're going the right direction there. Oh, come here. Boy, oh boy, that one sure wanted it, didn't it? Ate it head first. and then ran me right into the grass. And a lot of times you just got to keep your eye on the actual line itself, because you'll actually see that line twitch. A lot of times you won't even feel the strikes on these guys. My goodness gracious. Why can't my tournament fish be buttoned up like this? Well, isn't that how it always goes? You're out having fun and they just seem to choke a bait. And in a tournament, you just hook them right by the skin every time. But there's a nice chunkier fish there. We'll go ahead and set her back. But as I was saying, you got to really watch your line, because sometimes you'll be just paused. And that's how that fish was that time. Just on the pause. And I just saw that line just, I couldn't do that. And if I tried, just threw weeds in my mouth. Yeah. It's just kind of been one of those days, one of those weeks, one of those years. Anyway, as I was saying, these fish will hit it on the pause like that, and you just have to watch for that line to twitch like that. Be ready and set the hook. There he is. Wow, that one really crushed it. I mean, smoked it. That's a better one too. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh, she's barely hooked. She's barely hooked. I got her. Woohoo! That hook came right out too. Oh man. I'll tell you what, this is honestly, next to topwaters, catching fish early in the spring, pre-spawn like this. This is probably one of my favorite things to do bass fishing. I love throwing jerk baits, and we'll even talk about some of the other styles of baits we can throw early spring like this. Let's get her back in, but that, folks, that's spot on fishing right there. Oh yeah, another one just crushed it. Oh, boy, you gotta love it when they keep getting bigger and bigger each one, huh? Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Oh, this is something. She has choked this entire jerkbait. Oh my God, folks. Look at that. Tell me they don't just love jerkbaits this time of year. My gosh. Unreal. Look at that one. They're getting bigger each one. Now, why can't I have a bigger fish every time in a tournament? Yeah. Hey, you know what? That's what it's all about, is just getting out and catching some of these big pre-spawn fatties. They're just coming up, starting to feed, getting ready to look for beds. We'll set her back down. Man, we have the pattern today. Go ahead, girl. And away she goes. There he is. Boy, that one just sucked it in. We had a little change of weather. All of a sudden we had some rain showers in the area. The bite totally died. The wind died completely. The rain just stopped. And the wind shifted. But that's a thin little male there. You know what? They're all fun. But I'll tell you, it's crazy how the weather will affect them. It affects them every time of year. There's no doubt about that. But it's amazing, especially this early in the spring. And it feels so weird to me to be saying this early in the spring, and it's April. I mean, we just normally we're already thinking about bedding fish. You know, it's a lot warmer water temperatures. It's just been so darn cold. But when you're still in this stage of the game and it's that much colder out and the water temps are that cold, it totally changes everything. And those weather patterns, just the smallest little change can really throw them off. I mean, before that settled in, these fish were just crushing the jerkbait. Now that one just came up, just sucked it in. I didn't even see the line twitch, nothing. I went to make my next twitch and my rod was loaded. I was like, okay, we got him. So it's another thing to keep an eye on, just subtle changes in the weather. And if you can time it to get out before it, get those feeding windows open where they're a little more aggressive. But the nice thing about a jerkbait, you can still get those fish to go even after things change. It's just something about it hanging in their face. They just can't resist it. There it is. Oh, another one that just choked it. Get off of those floating mats. Oh, she's on the outside. I didn't see the bait right away. I thought she had choked it too. But that's a fatty, my goodness gracious. Oh man. Beautiful fish right there, just nice and thick. Another female that's getting ready to spawn. You want to know a little trick is to tell when the water is cold. Look down that bass's throat, down his mouth. See all that red around his lips and on the top of his mouth? And that real cold water, when they're still pretty lethargic, they'll have that reddish tone to them where it stays all the way down like that. And that's just something that they do when they're real cold. So you know that water is still cold. If you notice when you catch a bass in the summertime, it's not as vibrant. There's still some color there, a little pink, but that vibrant red is in that cold water. Now, if you're out and you're throwing, you know, your traditional lipless crankbaits, red-eye shads, and, you know, baits like that, and you're not catching fish, chatterbaits, bladed jigs, whatever you want to call them, and you're not catching fish, throw the jerkbait. I'm telling you, there is just something about it, especially this time of year. You know, they get a lot of coverage being good on shad bodies water and, you know, various lakes like that. And yeah, guys definitely do throw them in the spring, no doubt. But I'll tell you what, if you're only getting a fish here, a fish there on a quicker moving bait, do not overlook that jerkbait. It is just dynamite. So what I want to talk about briefly, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly where we're finding these fish this time of year. You know, it's a transition period. They're moving from some of the deeper water areas, even in the ponds or bigger lakes, and they're coming up onto these shallow feeding flats. There's going to be some newer emergent vegetation. Sometimes you'll even have some of the dead stuff, you know, that's still just the scummy, slimy pond kind of weed. But everything is coming back to life. It's going to start breathing oxygen. It's going to start holding bait fish. Now, the food source this time of year could vary. If you're on a shad-based body of water, you know, it'll hold shad. If we're talking smaller bluegills and crappies as their main forage base. So it's areas like this, these shallow flats, they're going to start to warm up, especially if they have a little rock. I mean, the area we're essentially fishing is a little bit of a hump and makes a flat and then drops off on both sides of it. A little bit of rock here and there with it, some vegetation, but it's definitely areas where the primary forage base in a lake like this is smaller bluegills and crappies, and there's some small craws. Now, the craws aren't going to be out and active as they would be in the summertime, but they are going to start to emerge out from underneath some of these rocks. So that's a food source. And these fish know it, so it's that transition period. And you may find windows. You may hit a flat like this, and you'll catch 5 or 6, boom, boom, boom. And then it's going to die down, even without a change of weather. And that's normal. Go ahead, bounce, hit a couple areas. Maybe you'll catch some more in a few other spots. Always come back to that area, though. If you rested for an hour or two and come back, more than likely that spot's going to reload. You know, so many times in spot on fishing, and if you've ever seen one of my seminars, I always talk about these spots, these feeding flats are like, you know, the oasis on the highway. Well, it really is the best analogy, because these fish are cruising around, they're starting to come up, they're looking for something to eat. These flats act as that oasis, just like when you're driving down the highway and you want to get a burger. So these are the areas we want to key in on, where it's holding the forage for these fish. And then we can turn around and actually find the predator fish up here. But like I say, it may reload, it may have 2 or 3, bounce around. If at any at all your bite slows down, then come on back to it. But as long as you're catching fish, you can stay on them. You could even stay on an area even if, you know, you just want to wait for it to slowly reload and pick a fish off here and there. But more than likely, there's other areas in any given body of water that's going to mirror what I'm talking about structure-wise that you can bounce to. Even if we were in a smaller pond situation for you shore-bound guys. You know, bounce around, hit a couple spots, but always after an hour or so, come on back. More than likely, that spot's reloaded. Just little things we want to key in on. It'll help you be a lot more successful and catch a lot more fish. Don't, you know, think, oh, I should just walk the whole pond. And no, because they're going to be stacked. You know, the active fish that are going to be the easiest to catch, and they'll vary in size, they're going to be on these type of structures, what I'm talking about. So there's no reason to if you're in a deep hole or you have, you know, steep break lines and there's no fish on it, there's no food on it, key in on what I'm telling you to look for. These flats, these feeding flats that are holding all the bait fish, and the predator fish are going to come through. They may go back out towards the deeper water, being that it is still cold. They may even continue on searching and working their way up shallows. It is the mid to end part of April. Like I said, it just warmed up, but it's very possible these fish are going to actually start looking for spawning beds just strictly based on a calendar year. My goodness gracious. That one just sucked it in. Oh, no, 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 don't come off, don't come off. Oh, she's barely hooked. Oh, you know what? It looks like she's hooked just underneath the mouth. One in the corner, and I think I got one almost to the other corner. Yes. One hook right there. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Man, oh man. Look at that guy. Just a chunky guy. Oh, this is fun. Let's set her back on down. It's amazing though, you know, as these fish are just coming in and out. And again, still the weather patterns change, and I can't stress that enough, just how every bite seems to be different, you know. And again, that was another one where I never even saw the line twitch. It was just when I actually went to twitch it, it loaded up. I mean, they sometimes will just grab it, sometimes they'll smack it. But you got to just pay attention and just be ready for a hook set, because it can come at any point. Like I say, you just, in this cold water, they act a lot different. So just always be ready. Oh, yes. Where are you going? Where are you going, huh? Oh, mercy. Now that one you may have noticed, folks, I had changed up the retrieve a little bit. You noticed I was kind of twitching a little quicker, moving it along a little bit. All of a sudden I wasn't getting bites. Slowed it down a little bit more, longer pauses. Let the fish tell you exactly what they're looking for. Well, hey everybody. I certainly hope everyone's going to take advantage of getting out and fishing some of this pre-spawn bass fishing. Now that it looks, from at least the day we're recording this through the next 10 days, we are in spring conditions. So I certainly hope that everybody's going to go out, take advantage of this. You know, have your standard baits with lipless crankbait, chatterbait, a spinnerbait, even some plastics just in case, be it a creature bait or like a drop shot rig. Those are great baits to have early on. But do not leave home without what we're throwing today, and that's a jerkbait. Whatever your favorite brand is, you gotta throw a jerkbait right now. It is on, the bite is hot, and I hope you can cash in on some of these early spring pre-spawn bass. That's about it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Tony Krizek. We can't wait to see you back here on Tony's Spot On Fishing.